Douglas Murray once said, "Any programme set up by government will inevitably metastasize unless consciously cut back by observant officials." And today's troubling news about the civil service only further proves this point. In 1914, when the sun never set on the British Empire, we ruled over 413 million people across the world, about a quarter of the world's population, and we did it rather efficiently. Now, there are more than 17,000 staff in the Foreign Office, but with no empire to show for it. And this is part of a broader problem. The civil service was about 24,000 strong in 1920, when we had a population of 40 million. Now, there are over 500,000 civil servants and a population of about 67 million. So the civil service has grown by 2,000%, whilst our population has grown by 67%. And this shows no sign of stopping. Between 2016 and 2023, the civil service has grown by nearly 25%, over 100,000 extra employees, the sharpest increase in 50 years. More now growth than in the British Army. Now, when I was the Minister for Government Efficiency, we had a plan very much led by Boris Johnson and Steve Barclay, which I was, in a way, the spokesman for, to reduce the civil service by 91,000 to get it back to 2015-16 levels. The civil service had grown because they'd latched on to COVID and to Brexit to say they needed more people and they needed them to be in London. And we'd come to the conclusion that actually the increase in civil servants wasn't providing a better service for you, the subject of His Majesty. It was, in fact, bloating the system. And of course, they were getting themselves higher pay at the same time. And we've seen a very big increase in pay within the civil service as grade inflation has been used to get round wage restraint. And this has happened again and again over the years. And the government efforts have been ignored. One of the things that I was most concerned to read about in today's figures was the increase in growth in London, because the government had a Places for Growth scheme to move people out of London to the rest of the country. And it was led by one of the best civil servants that I worked with, an absolutely brilliant, driven man who was working out how you could move civil servants out. Now, they hated it. I tried to get the Serious Fraud Office to move to Wrexham because they have wonderful offices, eyeballing, to use a ghastly word, at Nelson on top of his column there in Trafalgar Square in the High Commission of Canada building. And they didn't want to move from this glorious, luxurious place, even though it cost a fortune, and they weren't using it. Row after row of empty desks, acres of empty space. And it wasn't being used, but when it was suggested they should move to space they might actually utilise, the squeaking and squalling could be heard all the way from London to Wrexham. And this is part of the problem. Unless you have a government that is really driven and wants to reduce the civil service, it will just grow. So stability, stasis, is not enough. If you're lax about it, if you're lax about it and you don't try and squeeze it down, it will grow. Only by seeking to cut will you achieve the efficiencies that are needed. And this is why previous Conservative ministers were so successful. Michael Heseltine did it. Francis Maude did it. Under Boris Johnson's leadership, we were beginning to do it. We owe it to you as taxpayers to get the numbers down so that services are good, productivity is higher, people work in the offices they've got, and we have a smaller civil service.